about my son and his new show that's coming out, talking about I gotta judge the woman, and I'm gonna have a problem with all the women, and I want to have. I'm like, you guys need to stop that nasty trifling. It's a nasty. You nasty. Get your life together. That's my baby. That's my son. It ain't my fault your mama and your daddy don't like you. That ain't my fault.
If you thought Blueface's homecoming would be a peaceful victory lap, congratulations! You officially underestimated the universe. Because the moment Karlissa stepped in, the atmosphere flipped harder than a plot twist in a Tyler Perry finale. She pulled up confident, loud, and ready for spotlight radiation, while whispers spread that Chrisean Rock was nowhere in sight, shut out of the entire event like a rejected guest at the royal castle gates. Whatever happened behind those velvet ropes had fans screaming conspiracy. This wasn't just a mother showing up. Karlissa walked in like she owned the building's blueprints, and every stare in the crowd turned into a silent speech bubble. Cameras caught glances, body language, and half-muttered comments that set the internet on fire. And when viewers noticed Chrisean was missing from every angle, the theories exploded faster than fireworks in a gasoline warehouse. Was she banned? Iced out tactic? Or just chaos doing cartwheels for entertainment? The homecoming energy felt electric, suspicious, and tense enough to power a city block. Smiles looked rehearsed. Compliments sounded like time bombs. And every tiny interaction became suspicious footage. Because once the rumor spread that Chrisean wasn't allowed anywhere near the event, people didn't blink. They grabbed popcorn. Buckle up. If what leaked is even halfway true, then Blueface's homecoming just turned into the messiest blackout in hip-hop history. The moment Blueface's homecoming press popped up online, fans expected loud music, hometown pride, and a victory glow. Instead, what they got was a silent tension that felt thicker than a locked courtroom door. All attention zeroed in on Karlissa as she made her entrance poised, confident, and wrapped in the kind of aura that makes everyone shift in their seats. She didn't arrive quietly. She strolled in with that front row belongs to me walk, and the room reacted like someone just dropped a plot twist nobody rehearsed for. Whispers spread long before the footage did. Something about the vibe seemed staged, restricted, or strategically arranged. No matter which camera angle surfaced, the same detail was glaringly obvious. Chrisean Rock was nowhere. Not in the crowd. Not backstage. Not beside Blueface. Not in distant background blurs. And the longer viewers stared, the more suspicious her absence became. It wasn't a regular no-show. It felt like an unspoken rule had been placed, sealed, and enforced with iron determination. Speculation ignited the second the first clips leaked. Fans swore Karlissa's presence wasn't casual. Her smile looked too rehearsed and every handshake too strategic. Comment sections lit up with theories that this wasn't just a homecoming. It was a statement. Some believed Karlissa arrived to reclaim space, reset narrative, and make it clear who stood closest to Blueface when history circled back home. And when Chrisean's name never came up, the mystery transformed into gasoline on a lit match. People who had followed the messy triangle between Karlissa, Blueface, and Chrisean knew that silence often hides the loudest stories. Their history is a long archive of shade, clashes, and viral outbursts that prove nothing around them ever stays calm. Which is why the imagery of Karlissa glowing front and center while Chrisean faded into complete invisibility sent shockwaves through fans who had memorized every plotline in the saga. It felt too surgical to be coincidence. The tension reached its peak when the footage showed Karlissa interacting with supporters, posing for photos, and taking in praise as if she were the first lady of the entire event. She moved like the matriarch of an empire finally being recognized. Yet every celebration shot raised the same question. If Karlissa was welcomed with open arms, who shut the doors on Chrisean? Viewers paused, replayed, and zoomed in on every detail like detectives examining high-profile evidence. Rumors spread that Chrisean had tried to show up and was turned away. Others swore she never came near the building because she knew the reception would be colder than an ice bath. Screenshots popped up claiming to show guest lists, names scratched out, and VIP restrictions. Each post grew wilder than the last as the internet tried to explain the invisible wall separating the two most explosive names in Blueface's orbit. It didn't matter if any of it was real. Once the idea entered the public bloodstream, the world treated it like scripture. Karlissa's confident posture fed the narrative like oxygen. Fans watched every chin lift, every smirk, every glance she exchanged with Blueface, convinced it all meant something deeper. The clip where she walked past the cameras without flinching was replayed thousands of times with captions speculating that she had finally cemented her influence. To some, her energy screamed triumph. To others, it looked like a polished celebration of victory over a long-standing rival. And then there was Blueface himself, calm, composed, and surrounded by supporters who looked like they'd been coached to smile on cue. Some swore his energy was lighter, more relaxed, almost relieved. Others claimed the opposite, that he seemed cautious, trying to avoid reaction traps, knowing any slip would mutate into new scandal fuel. But the more people rewatched the footage, the more they agreed on one thing: he was comfortable with Karlissa present. And that comfort made Chrisean's absence scream louder than words ever could. Online reaction pages began posting side-by-side comparisons. Karlissa shining at the homecoming versus Chrisean completely unseen. Fans questioned whether the missing presence signaled a deeper fracture, a permanent split, or a silent agreement to keep distance during major public moments. Some said Karlissa being there meant lines were drawn. Others believed it was a strategic cleanup, a reset, or even a silent victory lap against years of digital battles. Music blogs jumped into the frenzy faster than lightning. Headlines read like leaked chapters from a scandal novel. Karlissa reclaims her throne, Chrisean shut out. Blueface chooses family over chaos. Reporters spun paragraphs around the eerie absence, convinced this wasn't just scheduling coincidence. Editorial columns began dissecting the history of the Blueface triangle, as if they were chronicling ancient royal disputes, mother versus partner, tradition versus rebellion, order versus unpredictability. People online didn't settle for theories. They started digging. Screenshots allegedly surfaced showing messages that confirmed Chrisean wasn't invited. One post insisted security had orders to keep the event clean of energy shifts. Another swore that Karlissa requested no drama, no noise, and definitely no past clashes resurfacing. None of it was proven, but the story caught traction like wildfire guided by strong wind. Thousands believed it instantly. Chrisean's absence became psychological warfare. People projected motives, pain, vengeance, ego, healing, all onto a missing silhouette. They claimed her silence meant she was boiling with resentment. Others believed it meant she didn't care, that she had moved on, or that she refused to walk into an environment painted against her. The mental battles ran wild because nobody spoke, nobody clarified, and nobody offered the public anything but silence and angles. Screenshots of Karlissa smiling became suspicious artifacts. Fans circled her posture, her jewelry, her expression, convinced all of it held coded messages. Her aura became the subject of threads nearly 1,000 comments deep. They debated whether her glow signaled closure, dominance, reconciliation, or a checkmate move in a long chess match. Even her outfit became evidence. The internet treated fashion like testimony on trial, reading symbolism into colors and stitching. Blueface fans split into factions instantly. One side believed Karlissa deserved the spotlight and stability after enduring years of mess. The other side insisted Chrisean should have been there as part of the narrative she lived through. Nobody agreed on anything except that the event looked calculated, to clean, to curated, to perfectly stripped of potential eruption. And the more perfect it looked, the more people insisted something must have been intentionally removed from the frame. Then came the recordings from inside the venue. Applause, laughter, speeches, yet never a whisper of Chrisean. Comment sections went nuclear, claiming the event had been sanitized. Someone wrote that you could feel the invisible do not enter boundary across the air. Others said the respect shown to Karlissa proved the family circle was redefining itself and closing its gates. Fans began comparing this moment to symbolic banishments from ancient dynasties like histories. Most dramatic inheritance struggles, whispers, even circulated that Chrisean was mentioned in private conversations at the event, but not in a welcome way. A few claimed those conversations sounded like relief that chaos wasn't present. The alleged tone of those conversations spread like wildfire, making the absence feel less like coincidence and more like caution. The internet swore they could sense underlying tension just from video shadows, microphone feedback, and backstage glimpses, and as always, people wondered whether Blueface silently approved the entire arrangement. Was distance his choice, or a mutual agreement? Did he want peace, better headlines, less controversy, or simply a tighter spotlight on his achievements without emotional baggage? Fans built entire essays from 2-second clips of him greeting Karlissa, convinced that body language told a full story. In public perception, to hugs became an entire narrative. By the end of the first 24 hours, Karlissa's homecoming appearance became less about her presence and more about Chrisean's absence. It turned into a digital trial of loyalty, boundaries, and power dynamics. People analyzed historic interviews, old drama, cryptic tweets, livestream rants, and private shade wars to fit them into the homecoming puzzle. The scandal didn't need physical confrontation to explode, it only needed one missing name. Because in the world of celebrity storytelling, the loudest shock isn't who shows up, it's who doesn't. And on Blueface's homecoming day, the world didn't see Chrisean. They filled that blank space with imagination, accusation, and suspicion. It didn't matter whether she was invited, declined, ignored, or simply busy. The absence itself became the fireworks, and Karlissa's confident presence poured gasoline on every spark. The narrative wrote itself. This wasn't an event, it was a separator. A reset moment where the internet decided lines were drawn and energy was redirected. Whether true or not, it became the headline that traveled faster than any official recap, interview, or press release. Karlissa walked through those doors like destiny. And Chrisean's missing silhouette became the shadow people couldn't stop staring at. Once the clips reached mainstream feeds, the narrative mutated into a wildfire that nobody could contain. Comment sections turned into digital interrogation rooms as fans demanded answers, explanations, and receipts. They slowed every second of footage as if Karlissa's smile were a confession and Chrisean's absence were an unsolved crime. Some users swore they detected satisfaction in Karlissa's expressions, a sense of subtle vindication as she basked in the homecoming spotlight that once seemed impossible to share. Influencers jumped into the frenzy like caffeine addicts on a breaking story. They released conspiracy breakdowns guessing whether the homecoming was a symbolic exile, a soft ban, or a carefully orchestrated peace ceremony meant to erase past storms. One talked about energetic cleansing, claiming the event vibe looked too peaceful to tolerate unpredictable personalities. Another insisted the entire celebration was coded messaging, presenting Karlissa as the renewed center of gravity while Chrisean was pushed off the solar map. Then came the reaction reels. People edited Karlissa's walk-in with royal entrance music, framing it as a coronation moment. Others inserted dramatic subtitles, turning silence into chapters and stolen glances into narrative prophecy. Even the homecoming background chatter was dissected like leaked audio, with armchair detectives claiming they heard people saying "keep it calm tonight" or "no scenes." Whether those voices were real or imagined didn't matter. Perception beat truth in a landslide. Theories about Chrisean multiplied by the minute. Some claimed she was blocked at the entry because staff feared chaos. Others insisted she was warned not to show at all due to past flare-ups with the family. And then there were those who spun an entirely different perspective, that she stayed away purposely, refusing to play a supporting character in a moment that belonged to Blueface and his mother. Every assumption fueled more commentary, and nobody bothered waiting for reality. What pushed attention into viral combustion was the way photos from the night rolled in. Karlissa posed with family, friends, supporters, and Blueface himself, glowing with confidence. Not a single shot hinted at conflict or discomfort. In a scandal ecosystem, that calmness looked suspicious. Viewers swore you could sense a narrative reset in her posture, like she was rewriting history simply by showing up without friction. And with Chrisean missing from every snapshot, fans treated those photos like trophies from a silent victory. Reaction culture didn't stop there. Artists began dropping vague emojis in unrelated posts, only to be dragged into the storyline as silent commentators. A laughing emoji under a random photo was suddenly treated as alignment against Chrisean. A prayer hands emoji was interpreted as quiet support for Karlissa. Musicians who had never met either woman became unwilling chess pieces on a board they didn't know existed. The pressure to pick a side spread faster than any official press could hope to counter. Meanwhile, discussion pages rewrote the homecoming into legendary scandal folklore. They compared it to iconic pop culture clashes, painting Karlissa as the matriarch reclaiming her throne after seasons of chaos. Some romanticized her strength, praising the confidence she displayed in the venue. Others were convinced it was a strategic move to freeze Chrisean out of the picture. And because nobody corrected them, the latest theories swallowed everything quieter and calmer. Chrisean's silence took on mythic weight. People combed through her social media like miners hunting for gold, overanalyzing captions, timestamps, emojis, song lyrics, and even the time she chose to post. If she went quiet online, fans labeled it brooding. If she laughed, they swore it was sarcasm. If she posted selfies, they interpreted it as defiance. Her existence transformed into a puzzle box that audiences wanted cracked open under studio lights. Even the simplest actions turned into scandal currency. If Karlissa liked a comment that praised her presence, people took it as a decisive blow. If Blueface reposted family pictures, it was seen as symbolic alignment. If Chrisean appeared at a gym, fans framed it as emotional training. Paranoia spiraled into pop culture entertainment because the silence of everyone involved created a vacuum. And the internet hates empty spaces more than anything in the world. And of course, the memes exploded. They depicted Karlissa walking the homecoming carpet like a dynasty heir, and Chrisean standing outside imaginary gates surrounded by warning signs. The internet turned absence into satire, drawing imaginary scenarios of rejection at the door or Chrisean peeking through windows like a sitcom character. Humor became armor for a community addicted to scandal, using jokes to hide the fact that they wanted answers just as intensely as they wanted entertainment. Blog writers pumped out full essays dreaming up reasons for the divide. One speculated that industry figures finally stepped in to separate combustible personalities. Another said Blueface sought seasonal alignment by keeping his inner circle clean of controversy for one night. Others pointed back to old live streams, messy arguments, and long-distance grudges, stitching together history like investigators assembling motive and chronology in a crime report. Even the smallest visual cues became ammunition. One screenshot of Karlissa patting Blueface's shoulder circulated as some symbolic declaration of unity. Another still photo showed Karlissa speaking to someone backstage, fueling rumors about final decisions made in hushed tones. Fans claimed every smile, whisper, or glimmering eye held coded meaning. At this point, imagination had full control. Reality was an afterthought drowned beneath a digital tidal wave. By the end of week 1, it wasn't just a homecoming anymore. It was a storyline written by millions, brightest on screens, but darkest in implications. Some feared the tension hinted at permanent fracture. Others hoped it meant clean separation and peace for all involved. And a good fraction simply enjoyed the theater, because messy history and silent mystery always plays better than any scripted show could hope to match. Blueface himself became a silent epicenter. Fans dissected one clip where he rested his arm around his mother, calling it a sign that loyalty had pivoted. Another moment where he stood alone was interpreted as hesitation, conflict, or strategic neutrality. His lack of commentary, just like Chrisean's, built a palace of speculation where audiences filled rooms with conjecture, chalk diagrams, and emotional fan fiction. Chrisean fans, hold no prisoners loyal, demanded fairness. They argued that people had no right to create exile theories with no factual ground. They built speeches defending her worth, her history, her place in Blueface's legacy. They said absence does not equal banishment, and silence does not equal guilt. Their passion fought rumor with desperation, but the internet rarely chooses logic over spectacle. The drama was simpler, juicier, and louder, and Karlissa supporters rose just as fiercely. They celebrated her homecoming like a coronation after years of friction. They said she deserved the glow, the peace, the spotlight without. Peace, the spotlight without. Shadows trailing behind. They claimed the night represented healing and restoration in the family dynamic. They viewed the absence of past turbulence as proof that order had returned, even if nobody confirmed or denied any narrative at all. In time, the collective conclusion formed: the homecoming wasn't big because of what happened. It was monumental because of what didn't. It was the empty space that screamed the loudest. The unspoken tension. The absence shaped like a person. The peaceful stage missing one of the most explosive pieces. It didn't need conflict to feel messy. It didn't need confrontation to cause tremors. The simplest silence made the loudest boom. And just like that, what should have been a celebratory night turned into the most iconic question mark of the year. Was Chrisean truly shut out? Or did she shut herself out? Was Karlissa's glow triumph symbolism or coincidence? Was Blueface orchestrating distance or simply letting the night unfold? The public built theories without certainty, wrote scripts without truth, and fell in love with a mystery that had no narrator. Because when the internet senses missing pieces, it writes the rest like destiny. In the weeks that followed, the silence around the incident aged like dark wine, richer, heavier, and more intoxicating than clarity ever could be. Every photo that surfaced afterward felt like a puzzle piece, yet none fit neatly enough to form answers. Karlissa kept carrying herself with unshaken poise, appearing in new posts, smiling with confidence, as if her homecoming had shifted something in the atmosphere. And with each confident pose, the public clung tighter to the idea that her spotlight that night wasn't accidental, but intentional and powerfully symbolic. Meanwhile, Blueface maintained a strategic neutrality so sharp it felt engineered. No confirmations, no denials, just steady presence and calm focus. His silence made people whisper louder because a single sentence could have dissolved the tension, yet he offered none. Instead, fans studied his expressions in new interviews, searching for clues in tone shifts, eyebrow raises, or stray sentences. Every casual laugh became a suspicious signal. Every moment of stillness a potential confession. Chrisean stayed distant from the narrative, yet the world dragged her name anyway. Her absence became a ghost that haunted conversations, lingering in speculation bubbles that refused to burst. If she posted something inspirational, people said it was coded frustration. If she went quiet, they said it was cold resentment. If she showed strength, they called it emotional armor. The mystery turned her into a character the internet continued writing, regardless of her own silence. Industry insiders quietly admitted the moment had created ripple effects far beyond fan speculation. There were whispers that venue planners, promoters, and brand coordinators took mental notes from the homecoming event. They saw how a single absence sparked global conversation and how a single presence reshaped narratives. Some concluded that volatile combinations wouldn't be allowed without careful curation. Others said the incident quietly set the tone for future appearances involving any of the three. The deepest consequence sat on reputation. Karlissa emerged with a layered identity, part respected matriarch, part master of calm optics. Supporters praised the elegance she displayed that night, saying she demonstrated stability where countless past interactions were drenched in chaos. To them, the homecoming was proof that she knew how to command space, redirect energy, and choose calm where storms once roared. Her glow became an unspoken narrative shift, a rebranding by presence alone. Chrisean's public image evolved just as dramatically, but in a different direction. For years, she represented fire, passion, unpredictability, and a spirit unfiltered by rules. Her absence at such a symbolic moment became reinterpreted as growth by some and rejection by others. Fans debated whether that missing seat at the homecoming signified maturity or exile. They read symbolism into silence the way mystics read omens in sky patterns. Everyone wanted meaning, because meaning made the scandal feel grander than reality. Blueface stood at the crossroads between both worlds, with an aura that hinted at decisions made behind closed doors. Some speculated the homecoming marked a personal boundary, one that prioritized family structure over public tension. Others said the event was simply a moment of reclaiming peace, a stage cleared of emotional volatility so memories could be made without pressure. The public's inability to confirm anything made all interpretations simultaneously true and false, depending on who told the story. The strangest twist of all was that no images of hostility ever emerged. No arguments, no side eyes, no tension caught on camera between Karlissa and anyone else. The peacefulness irritated some viewers because it robbed them of the scandal satisfaction they expected. The absence of chaos became its own conspiracy, as if calmness could only exist when something disruptive was deliberately removed. That lack of tension took on more weight than any visible argument could have. Eventually, the memory of that night became lore. Comment sections referenced it as the freeze-out, the silent divide, or homecoming gate. It evolved from an internet rumor into a marker in the timeline of Blueface's personal universe. Homecoming clips resurfaced whenever new headlines emerged involving any of the three, treated like predictive footage of everything that followed. The crowd wasn't simply watching a moment. They had convinced themselves it was a prophecy. Over time, the unanswered questions aged into legend. They became the story that reappeared in every commentary thread, music blog, and fan debate. Did Karlissa and Blueface want a drama-free circle that night? Did Chrisean choose distance as a form of peace? Was the absence mutual, forced, emotional, or irrelevant? Nobody knew, yet the desire to know fed the narrative endlessly. Because mysteries are addictive in a world where everything is expected to be explained instantly, some fans argued that the scandal was only scandalous because people projected what they wanted to see. They said the moment reflected the public more than it did the people involved. It showed how hungry society is for conflict, power shifts, symbolism, and the thrill of fractured relationships. Without a single confrontation, the internet still built a saga from silence. And perhaps that was the most revealing part of all. People crave drama even when it doesn't truly exist, yet others held tight to the belief that the homecoming revealed real fractures. They swore the energy shift that night spoke volumes. They said relationships had permanently rearranged, that trust lines were snapped, and that the distance we witnessed wasn't accidental but protective. To them, the event became a silent boundary drawn in plain view, not out of hatred, but out of necessity. A graceful separation dressed as a celebratory moment died in the aftermath. More footage trickled out. Karlissa smiling, speaking to supporters, embracing family. Blueface relaxing with longtime friends. Still no sign of Chrisean. The repetition of her absence became a pattern that felt too consistent to dismiss. Comments on those clips began with the same stunned message. This transformation wasn't temporary. It felt like the stormy chapter that had defined their dynamic was now a closed book left on a forgotten shelf. And yet, the public clung to hope that one day clarity would arrive. A live stream, a statement, a casual interview answer, anything. But the more time passed without explanation, the more powerful the mystery became. Nobody corrected the narrative, nobody redirected the spotlight, and nobody broke the spell. The tension matured into something iconic, the kind of unresolved moment fans replay in their minds like a cliffhanger that may never be finished. Karlissa's presence at that homecoming will always be remembered as more than motherly support. It became symbolism engraved into modern hip-hop folklore. Chrisean's absence will always feel like a puzzle missing the middle piece. Blueface's silence will always read like an invisible signature stamped across the moment. When fans look back, they'll realize that this wasn't just about a public event. It was about boundaries, image, evolution, and the uncomfortable truth that not every story is meant to be told out loud. And maybe that's the point. Silence isn't weakness. Absence isn't defeat. Sometimes it's strategic protection, healing, distance, or the simple choice not to burn energy on past battles. People can change, ties can loosen, and lives can shift without press releases or explanations. If the night proved anything, it was this. The world will imagine scandal even where none exists, because drama is our favorite addiction. But the legend remains. Karlissa's entrance, Blueface's calm, Chrisean's shadow of absence. 3 names woven into one unforgettable night that will forever be replayed for clues that may never surface. And that's why the memory never fades. The homecoming didn't erupt into chaos, but its quietest detail became the loudest echo, a silence so sharp it carved its own place in cultural history. Because in the end, the unanswered story became bigger than any truth could ever be. And the internet still watches, waiting for a single sentence that will either confirm, deny, or continue feeding the greatest mystery ever born from a moment missing just one face. Now that we've unraveled the silence, decoded the glances, and dissected every invisible thread wrapped around that homecoming night, it's your turn to enter the storm. Smash that like button like it owes you a refund. Drop your wildest theory in the comments and tell me what you think really went down.